Okay, still on the readings for the fifth Sunday after the Epiphany in Lectionary Year A, February 8th, 2026. The New Testament lesson, the epistle, is pretty much the whole chapter, the whole second chapter of the book of 1 Corinthians. Is that right? Yeah. The little parentheses on your lectionary chart say that if you want, you don't have to read those verses, like the 13 through 16. But Pastor Borger usually always chooses to include those because it provides additional context. So we'll just go ahead and prepare to hear this whole chapter. This chapter is hard. There are parts of Paul's writings, they're just really, really hard. So there's stuff in here that I don't understand, and we will wait for whoever is the preacher on February 8th to tell us what this is about. But there are a couple things that I want to point out. First, Paul is one of the greatest theological minds ever to live. And what he says is, I didn't come to you with real highfalutin talk. It doesn't really matter, Paul says, what I can do academically or intellectually, because the most important thing is that I know that Jesus Christ was crucified for me. And so kind of throughout this reading, he's contrasting intellectual smarts, intellectual understanding of the things of faith, with actual devotion. And so this is kind of getting at the heart of what our Isaiah reading is for this week. The people were doing things that looked to be like the things that God wanted them to be doing, but their hearts weren't right. And people can say words in really fancy, intellectual, elite academic ways that make them look like they're really, really great theologians or really, really faithful. I did this for 25 years. I traded intellectual assent for heart transformation because I did. And I was deceived. That was about me. That was about what I was capable of. And there were a lot of problems with that. And so Paul's like, that's not what I'm doing here. Paul is capable of some pretty unbelievable theological explanation and writing. And he says, it doesn't matter. What matters is that Christ died for me. And that he's with them in weakness. Paul also struggled a lot. The people in our Isaiah reading are getting ready to have some pretty bad consequences for their sins. And God says, all you have to do is return to me and I'll be with you. And Paul, as an apostle of Christ, is saying, I'm with you in your suffering. I'm suffering too. And this is one of the things that we as Christians do for each other. When somebody is having a hard time, we go be with them. You know, we send them a text. We send them a card. We give them a call. We invite them to church. We go out to eat with them. We sit with them in the fellowship hall after worship. We ask them how they're doing. We are with each other in struggles. That's one of the things that Christ asks us to do. And Paul says, I'm doing that for you, Christians in Corinth. My message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power. Why? So that your faith shouldn't rest on the wisdom of men. We don't go after people who sound really good. Just like in Isaiah, God said, don't try to look good by the stuff that you're doing that appears like you're following me. Paul is saying, I'm not just talking Christian talk in a really smart way to look good. Our faith shouldn't rest on the ability of people to talk really convincingly about Christ. What should it rest on? it should rest on the Spirit. Down in verse 10, Paul says, "For to us God revealed them." What did he reveal? The mysteries of the faith, the things that we can't understand, like all of it. How did God get here? How has he always been? How did he come up with all of this? How did Christ split off from God, come down to earth, take a body, live in it, die, and raise himself from the dead and reunite with Christ and forgive all of our sins so that we can be with? There's a whole bunch of stuff about our faith that we don't understand. That's why it's called faith. That's why we need faith. But what Paul is saying is, don't worry about all of that. Don't worry about how incapable you are of understanding what is going on here. What is the most important thing? God reveals stuff to us through the Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the depths of God. Going on, verse 12. We have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might know the things freely given to us by God. We don't have to figure it out. Faith isn't a series of white knucklings or just trying harder in order to apprehend